Hello and welcome to the Bits with Joe and Nick. I'm Joe. I'm one of the people that runs Allplay Games,
And I am Nick with Bitewing Games.
and we're here to get really in the weeds with nitty gritty publishing stuff. The whole premise of this conversation and podcast, if you're new to this, is me and Nick both run board game publishing companies, and we talk about really nerdy board game manufacturing and board game publishing things. We've done entire episodes on hiring artists and signing games and all kinds of things like that. And we like to get into the weeds with these conversations. So if you are a small publisher that wants to know more information about publishing games and hear some thoughts and opinions on it, or if you're just like a huge nerd and don't publish board games, but you just love board games and want to hear about these types of things, you're in the right spot.
That's right. And today's topic for us is going to be all about boxes and board game packaging.
Talk about like exciting, yes. Talk about riveting conversation. But like, I bet we could go for like hours on this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot to cover. So we do have a lot of bullet points, and we collected comments from folks on Facebook beforehand. So we're going to try to cover a lot today. So I guess to kick things off for this topic, how much does the box matter, and box sizing, box material, all of that in producing a game?
Ooh, how much does the box matter? I think so. So I'll just say very quickly what I think, and I'll toss it over to you. I think the box is the most important aspect of your game.
Mm. Yeah, when you say that, that makes me immediately think of the artwork and the presentation, right? If somebody is at a game store and they're looking at a shelf of options, which one stands out to them and makes them grab it, pick it up, and look at it, right? And then the second most important part of that is when they flip it to the backside, and how good does your game do at selling itself to people who are looking at it, either at a convention or at a retail store, right? Obviously, that's different when you're online and you're looking at much smaller thumbnails. But again, it still needs to stand out in that scenario as well.
Yeah, like the artwork for your box should be the most important piece of art that you create for the game. Because that's the piece of art that is going to convince somebody to buy or not buy, or at least be interested in it, right? Like the artwork that you present on the front of your game. And again, I know we're going to get these like BGG people that are like, oh, I don't care about the art on a board game whatsoever. But look, you are dozens, and we are selling to hundreds of thousands, right? Like it's like we're talking about like the general populace, okay? Mr. Angry BGG user who doesn't care about the art in his board games. We get it. We understand you. But in general, when we're talking about publishers of board games, our big focus is like when the art of a board game is used on the box cover to entice people into wanting to pick it up off the shelf. And then the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look at it and they're going to turn it over. And that is the moment in a retail setting that you have to sell somebody on your product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and people are quite passionate, especially hobbyist gamers. You mentioned the BGG crowd. They're quite passionate about their boxes as well. You know, I think of the recent example of Quacks of Quedlinburg getting a new skin and being renamed to Quacks, right? And the huge forum discussion, the very passionate responses that evoked, right? And box sizing, we'll get into that in a bit as well. But people are passionate about that.
CMYK has kind of been on the hot seat about packaging for the last couple of months. It takes all the heat off of everyone else.
It's true. Yeah, it's interesting to see reactions to reskins, boxes as well.
And also with the Magenta series being just like oversized packaging, right? Like too elaborate or whatever. And again, I'm not trying to like, hey, it's their publishing company. They can do what they want. And I personally like the new Quacks art myself. Yeah. I don't know that I would have done exactly what they did. I think it was a little too dark and drab. I think they could have brightened it up. But I do kind of like the nostalgia of like kind of that like those old Christmas movies.
Yeah, the claymation
sort of. Yeah, like I like that. And I would not be opposed to doing that for an aesthetic for a board game I did. I mean, they just did it, so I wouldn't do it right now, but
Yeah.
still. But this was specifically about how much does the box matter, but how much does the box size matter?
Hmm.
Now, I'm somebody, Nick, as you know, who is very passionate about box sizes.
Yeah.
And we are very consistent with our box sizes here at Allplay, right?
Hmm.
And we understand that our box sizes are not like the standard box sizes that you're going to find for most boxes. In fact, if we wanted to do that, our bigger boxes would be Ticket to Ride size, and our smaller boxes would be those like card game size with like two decks side by side, right? Like
Right.
that's more standardized in the board game industry, but we like our boxes. We also like the fact that our boxes have like very strict adherences because it forces us to be very creative when it comes to the components that we're using, how we're doing it, and also like it restricts us on the types of games we can sign. When we decide that we can't just do any type of thing and make the box work around that, it forces us to be pickier about the types of games that we sign. And I know that that's like something that like some people are very like, oh, like that seems like a bad decision. And I'm like, no, I like that decision because like it's hard to make a Twilight Imperium in our box size, you know?
Yeah.
So like even if I really like this like 4X space game, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get this to work for $40 in our box size. So it keeps the what Allplay does a little bit pure in the fact that I can't be stupid, but I can be creative with a game like Merchants of Andromeda, right?
Hmm.
Where I have lots of boards laid out all over the place and I have lots of pieces and lots of chits, and it's a more of a Euro game experience than we've done with most games. I can do that, but I have to be creative about how I go about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because I've played a lot of your games, and I've tried Merchants of Andromeda even though it hasn't released yet. I got a preview copy to sample, and it's interesting that it feels, even though it's in the exact same size as your other games, say like Pollen, which is more of a card game in the same box size, it feels like a bigger sprawling game. And so there are ways to make a game feel or bring in a bigger game within the same box size as long as you're creative about it, right? But yeah, that's interesting. Some people have asked, is it better to have a larger box or a smaller box? What are the pros and cons of taking the size in each direction? And that, some of the things that come to mind that a lot of people understand are, if your box is bigger, people think psychologically it gives the impression that it has more value to it, right? Like it's worth more money. So when I sell a box that's this large for $50, that's going to be easier than me trying to sell a box that's this large for $50, right? That kind of thing. But then on the other hand, especially with hobbyist gamers, which maybe this isn't as big of a deal with the casual market. You mentioned CMYK's card game line, their Magenta line that they just released. People who don't buy very many games aren't going to be as bothered by a big box full of air, whereas hobbyist gamers really hate games that waste space on their shelf, right? So there's pros and cons to either direction, but obviously if you're shipping a bigger box, it's going to take up more space in the carton, more space in the container, and it's going to cost you more money as far as the landing cost goes to getting it to its final destination. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're talking about a box size.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I also just found a game that I wanted to bring up as far as like an example of some box size stuff. So one of the things about box size that's really important is never, for any reason, ever make your game not fit in a Calyx shelf. I think that is like, I think if you have done that as a board gamer, as a board game publisher, you have fundamentally pissed off an entire, like, very large segment of the board game population. Is if your game is just tall enough and just wide enough to not go on a Calyx shelf, you're gonna have like imagine if it's like one of those like Agricola like kind of rectangle boxes, but you've gone like 10 millimeters higher than how it can go onto a Calyx shelf like that.
Yeah.
The number of people that are just going to be so mad at you is so large, right? So this is just something to think about. Like if you're thinking about making your board game 330 by 330, and I always talk in millimeters because I worked in manufacturing, but if you're talking about like a 330 by 330 box and it just doesn't go on a Calyx shelf, people are going to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit more forgivable if only one of those dimensions, meaning it sticks out from the wall. But even that's
Yeah.
annoying, right? So yeah, if you can stay within those dimensions, you're doing a lot better for sure. Because most people's shelves are that.
I've heard a new term thrown around every now and then where people talk about a game that is calimaxed. Have you heard this term?
No.
Where it's like our game is calimaxed, where they have literally made the game specifically to fill a calyx cube. And I'm like, more power to you, I guess. I had
Yeah.
actually one game that really frustrated me. I had to I put it in my calyx shelf, and it was so perfectly sized that I had to pull my calyx away from the wall to actually push it from the back because it couldn't come out of it. And I was like, well, now you've created a different problem. Like I also can't put this on my shelf, but for a much more annoying reason.
Well, what do you think about the idea of like sizing a box according to its price, or pricing a box according to its size? You know, because your games are rather compact, and I do feel like, you know, your $40 game, the size justifies the price, but sometimes I worry, like we have a more compact-ish Spectral, right, which is $45, and sometimes I worry, did we slightly cross the line with that box in terms of, you know, does it seem a little bit more expensive than the size of the game itself? Were we too, because that game is like zero air, right? We were very efficient packing the game in there. But the question becomes, do people perceive that as too expensive for its size?
Probably. $45
Yeah.
in a game that's smaller than our $40 box, I think is a hard sell because
Yeah.
people like the average consumer. Again, I know everyone listening to this is so smart, so intelligent. You know better. I get it. I
Hmm.
get it, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in general, the mass audience that we have to think about in terms of selling our games, right? Because most of the people that are buying games are not hardcore BGG users.
Hmm.
Like I know that we sometimes think of it in those terms, but like most of the people that are buying board games are just people that like games, right?
Yeah.
They might only own 30, 40 games, right? And hear about our game, see our game, and they have a chance to let that be their next new board game that they're going to play for a while. And so when it comes to that, I think a lot of those types of people perceive value. And when they see your game, right, that has nice packaging, nice art, and they flip it over and they're like, oh, a deduction game, right? And they put it back and it's $45. And then they go the next shelf over and they see an unlocked game, right? That's from Space Cowboys that's much bigger, right? And kind of more of an Agricola sized box. And it's like, oh, it's only $25. They don't understand that the value in each of those boxes is different in terms of the components and perhaps the gameplay experience and yada yada. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of that's subjective and arguable anyway,
Yeah.
right? But I think that they're more likely to go with like, oh, this feels like I'm getting more value, even though that game consists of 3 decks of cards,
Hmm.
whereas your game consists of like all of these components needed to facilitate a game.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think one counterpoint to that is if you're a publisher or a seller who mainly moves your games through online, then people are looking at pictures of the box instead of holding it physically in their hands, and there's less of a size value effect, I think, in those scenarios.
Yeah, and by the time they get the game when it ships to them, they're not gonna remember how much they spent on the game anyway.
Sure.
It's really more of a retail setting type thing.
Hmm.
I mean, that was one of the things like River Valley Glassworks is in Target, and one of the things that I'm hopeful for about River Valley Glassworks is it has the same artwork as Everdell, and they're both in Target, right?
Hmm.
And they both have artwork from Andrew Bosley. They both feature cute animals. And now I did not do this on purpose, but I've thought about this when I've seen it in Target. Is I see River Valley Glassworks with Andrew Bosley artwork in my box size, and then in a bit of a bigger box, you see Andrew Bosley artwork on Everdell, right? And they both have cute, charming animal artwork, and different things. But the box size isn't quite like it's actually like somewhat when you look at them like that, like not that different.
Hmm.
But they see that ours costs $39.99 and they see that that one costs 70, right?
Hmm.
And so my hope is that people see these two games, associate them together, and go, "Oh, I'll buy the $40 one, not the $70 one. Like that one's almost twice the cost, right?"
Right.
And when they open River Valley Glassworks, I hope that they feel like the components and the density of the game is well justifiable to the cost of what we charge for it.
Yeah. Okay, here's maybe a lighter question, but square versus rectangle. Do you have any strong opinions either way as far as the box shape?
I do both.
Yeah.
I have a square box and I have a rectangle box.
Hmm.
Do I have a preference? Me personally? Oh, okay. Actually, here's my preference. I prefer a rectangular box over a square box, and this is specifically talking about like the Agricola size versus the Ticket to Ride size,
Mm,
like two very well known like standardized box sizes. I feel like in the industry, right?
yeah.
Like rectangle versus square. Here's why.
Hmm.
The publisher will always size the rule book to the maximum size of the box, and I hate those square box rule books.
Yeah,
I
that's true.
hate reading a rule book that is like so big, and it's just like they flop, and I'm like, when it's the Agricola size one, it's a book, I can
Hmm.
just read it, right? And I
Yeah.
have to deal with this like big floppy mess of a rule book when I'm dealing with like a Ticket to Ride size game. So I guess from purely subjective reasons, I would go rectangle, but I will say, like, man, the Ticket to Ride size box look nice in the store. They
Hmm.
look nice on the shelf. There's something about that square portrait and what you can do with it.
Hmm.
And honestly, sometimes like you have to really think about like the artwork. Like I think in a rectangle box, what was that game that came out from the French company last year that had Weber's and Santiago art Flatiron,
Oh
right?
yeah. Hmm.
And so they had this like it was in a rectangle box, but like the premise was like this big skyscraper that was being built, right?
Hmm.
And it had verticality to it, right? It had
Hmm.
this like vertical nature to it, right? If that was on a Ticket to Ride, like a square landscape box or a square box, you I don't know that you can get that
Mm.
verticality feeling
Yeah.
out of that game, right? You can't like the proportions of the game really affect what you do with the artwork and how that can evoke different things. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Sometimes I think about things like that in terms of like, what am I doing with this artwork and can I evoke what I want to out of this? Like River Valley Glassworks, I wanted this like sweeping landscape to, and like the rectangular proportions help me do that.
Yeah. That makes sense. How about some people asked about this as well. Let's see if I can find the exact question. But Allplay is known for their standardized box sizes, whereas a lot of other publishers like us at Bitewing, we have some standard box sizes, but we're also we're more flexible. We do more custom box sizes for certain games and things like that. What are the pros and cons to kind of locking yourself in versus doing the custom sizing?
So I would say, so I want to talk about Bitewing real quick,
Hmm.
right? So right now, I would say that Bitewing has the consistent box size that you're doing is your two-player line of games.
Yeah, lately we've started the two-player line, which is just now releasing, and it's very similar to your classic two-player sized game like Patchwork and stuff, right? So that's very consistent. Our travel line, but right behind me, we're keeping that consistent, and then we do have a big box like Zoo Vadis, Bebop, Shuffle and Swing, and so on. And Silos coming out, and those games all have a bigger, same box size as well. So we're trying to be
But
more consistent.
you vary the thickness of your boxes for each game, don't you?
Cascadero is thinner of those biggest box games, but the rest are the exact same dimensions.
And isn't Cascadero also just like taller for some reason?
No, it's the same as Zuvadis, but it's much thinner, just because there's not as many components to it, and it's just easier to thin it out a little
So
bit.
you can return the favor later, but would you mind if I brought up like a negative of a box thing in relation to one of your games?
Oh yeah, that's fine. Hmm.
Okay. I have actually an issue with how thin you made Cascadero.
That's fair.
Because this is something that happens with some games is you can shrink the thinness of it, but sometimes when you shrink the thinness beyond a certain portion, and this I think is a problem with Cascadero, is the box when it sits tends to open of
Mm.
its own volition,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
Cascadero, like there's not enough like tension across the border of the box where the lid and the bottom of the box connect, the top and the bottom connect, to
Hmm.
keep the game from doing opening on the shelf,
Yeah.
right? And so if you don't have it pressed in with other games, like kind of book ending it in,
Yep.
it tends to do this on a shelf, right? Which if you store them flat, no big deal. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of people that are especially collectors like to have their games vertically displayed on their Kallax shelves, like you do behind you, right? But Cascadero is so thin that it doesn't, and like now our tiny box games are thinner than Cascadero is, but because they're so much smaller, they don't have that thing where they
There's not the
things out.
components, weighing against the two sides, right? Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's tough, especially in the retail display, if they're wanting to stand up Cascadero and show it, they need to prop it up somehow, right? Luckily, it's in shrink wrap still, so it's not opening or anything like that.
Right,
but
right.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I've noticed, yeah, there are pros and cons to doing a box that thin.
There's one other thing that I would bring up, and this is something that I've gotten from retailers, right? And this is not about Cascadero specifically, but it kind of correlates. If your game does not stand up well on a display or on a store shelf, and this is like a thing, it's also like something where if you're manufacturing a game, you should always specifically say, do not put the shrink wrap edge on the bottom of the box, right? Always keep the shrink wrap seal on the top of the box, right? And this is something that you need to be specific with your manufacturer about, because if a retailer, and I've heard this from lots of retailers, set the game up and it doesn't sit well and it falls, right? And so like Cascadero is very thin, so it could have that possibility, but also like a thin game mixed with the shrink wrap not being on the right side of the game, it falls over. And I've heard retailers say this: if I have to pick your game up more than once on my display, I will not reorder it.
Wow.
And that seems like a really like wild thing, but like retailers are like, yeah, it's just annoying to us. We don't like it. It frustrates us. And so if your game doesn't, if I can't set it and it's good, I don't want your game.
Yeah. And at the very least, they're probably shoving it in sideways between two games at that point anyways, and then it has less of a visibility in the store, right? So, yeah, some things to think about. But I know on your end, sometimes the challenge with a uncompromising box dimension is when the box gets tight, right? And you get some people who start to complain like, I can't pack this in the way I want to pack this in, and maybe those people are just separating their components into way too many bags. We've talked about this a little bit with like inserts and components and stuff, but yeah, that can be a challenge on the opposite end, is like, is this going to fit? And I worry about that sometimes too with some of our games, is like, okay, we have this size we like to stick to with this particular line of games. Is this going to fit? It's probably going to be tight, right? And so that can be a concern if you're stuck to, very specific dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge for us. Like there's always like a moment where like there are some games that we produce where like, is this gonna fit? Is this gonna fit? Is this gonna fit? Oh my god, is this gonna fit? And it usually does. And like sometimes it's one of those things where like Habitats fits great. When you add in the deluxe and meeples, you have to be real careful about how you pack that. And I can show you how to pack it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, it has to kind of be packed like this if you really want everything to fit in the box with zero lid lift, right? I think Through the Desert was also one where we were like, it was you have to put those things in. You have to make sure that the bags don't have extra air in them. Like you have to like do some things to make sure that the game fits, but also like, it's a $40 game. Like it's like we put a lot of value into a $40 game.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where we try to be very careful and very specific about like how we think about the packaging, but like getting everything together and making sure that it fits in the box and everything is sometimes like we put some thought into that. In fact, I think I can show it to you really quickly. I think that this is something really funny. So we have a game coming out called Ruins, right, which has transparent cards, and it's by John D. Clare. And I have the final game here, right? And I want to show this to you, Nick.
Ooh, nailed it!
If you're listening to this on audio, I maybe suggest going, because this has all the components in it, including the deluxe ones, which sit right here on the side.
Nice.
And you could bag these if you want to. I usually don't bag them because it's just a few pieces, right? But like, I want you to look this right here.
Just flush.
Like
It's flush with
just
the box bottom. Yeah.
there's nothing. And I
No,
gotta be honest with you, I got real nervous when we were getting this. I was like, am I
I
gonna
bet.
have to make but like these are like super high quality sleeves. These are like over 100 micron sleeves, and I didn't really want to compromise on a game with sleeving like that requires the sleeves to play the game on like giving you crappy sleeves that would
Yeah.
make the thickness. But like that is just almost couldn't be more perfect, right?
Nailed it.
Like
Yeah.
it's crazy
I love it.
how this came out. I just wanted to share that with you, Nick,
Yeah.
specifically because that's kind of a special moment for us here. At Allplay.
It reminds me of one thing I've found that is helpful is when I'm trying to think like when I'm trying to especially plan out the dimensions of the components and is this going to fit in the box size that we're planning is cracking open other games with similar size components to what I'm thinking I want to use, and then just shoving that in the box and seeing is this going to fit theoretically, right? But I found
So
I sometimes get too close to that where I don't account for the fact that people are just going to toss a bag of pieces in instead of lay them perfectly flat. So like when we did our first box size for Zuvadis, the only way you could pack that game up is by laying all of the animals perfectly flat, like next to each other and then on top of each other. And it made packing up the game take like 4 times as long as it should. And so we ended up just increasing the thickness of that box a little bit just so it's easier to just throw the pieces in instead of having to meticulously organize and lay everything perfectly flat. And yeah, it's something to think about. Like you want a little bit of wiggle room in there just so it's easy to pack away. Ideally.
and I do agree with that. Whenever I get like super nervous, whenever I get like crazy nervous about a game, because all of our games are the same, like use very standardized like thicknesses and everything like that. I'll go out to like our little spare part shelves and I'll take an empty box and I'll be like, I know this has like 6 punch boards and I know this has like this many player mats and I know that this has like this many meeples and this many dice. And I'll just start grabbing all these spare parts and like put it in the empty box of like one random box. I'm like, this is a facsimile of like how it's gonna fit, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, we're
good.
good. We're good.
That's great. How about finishing touches for a box? What I mean by that is you can add like finger holes to a box, like that half circle cut to the box top, or you can add a spot UV finish that makes part of the artwork glisten, or you can add a foil finish with like a shiny metallic texture to it, or you can add a linen finish to a box. There's different ways that you can spend a little bit more to make a box maybe feel more premium or easier to open or things like that. Do you have any strong opinions there?
Oh, I have very strong opinions. I have the strongest opinions. I do not like linen finished components. I don't. I think they can be sort of like, I think they can provide a nice look to a game when it's like a very classy Euro. Right, so like the Vital Lacerda games when they come out and they all have linen finished everything. I think some
Yeah.
people associate like deluxified ideas with that, but like it looks nice on a game like Vinos, right? I don't like it on my games. I do not linen finish. I think there's some games that we've done in the past that have like just had some linen finish for whatever reason, but like I do not linen finish really anything in our games at all. I don't like the way it looks very much. I think it, especially like on cards, if there's text on cards, I think it like I'm gonna say a word that I'm probably not gonna be able to pronounce. Obfuscates, right? Like, where it makes
Yeah.
it makes it more difficult to read.
Yeah.
The text on the cards, like when you put linen finish on cards, I don't. It doesn't improve the quality of the cards. People think like, oh, linen finish cards are like a higher quality. They're just more expensive. They just have a pressed on like thing on top
Texture.
of them.
Yeah.
Like using like the cards that we use are like ivory core cards. They're nice, high quality, high value card stock. Because we care about that. I don't care about putting like a linen finish on it because I don't think it makes it nicer. When it comes to spot UV and foil, I am okay with spot UV and foil if you're doing something. If you're just like, oh, I'm just going to spot UV the logo, is that going to do anything for the game? Right? Is it going to create anything? I put foil. I'm trying to think. I put foil on this game. Oh, I walked away and I don't have my. Okay, so
I can still hear you. I can still hear you. Yeah.
Okay, good. So one of the few games I've put foil on was Lunar, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
And I used like a foil stamping on Lunar, right? It added like 10 cents to the cost of the game.
Hmm.
But I thought very specifically for Lunar itself, having this like silvery aspect to the box on a very, because it's a very stark piece of art, right?
Hmm.
I love it. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a
Yeah.
beautiful looking packaging. But I think that the foil really enhanced what this game does.
Hmm.
If you're just like, oh, we put foil on the logo, like, well, we put spot UV on the logo, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Use it with purpose, right? Like think about what's going to make it look really nice and focus on that. I believe River Valley Glasswork had some spot UV on it because like we wanted to spot UV like the animals on the box of the game, right?
Yeah.
So that they stood out
Makes them
and
pop.
like the background, like it kind of makes it pop a little bit more. So I would say that like my argument against it is don't just do it to do it. Do it with purpose. Do it because it's enhancing something, not just because you're like, oh, it's foil. Because guess what? It's not going to make it sell more, right? Like you foiling the game with no purpose is, or spot UVing the box with no purpose is not going to make it sell more. It's only do it if you're actually going to enhance what the game has.
Makes me think of one game that does it really well, Mind Management, where they have a cover of like I think it's a woman's face on the fronts, but it's about a game of like deception or secret agents, that kind of thing. And the spot UV has like a skull, and so when you like tilt it one way, you see like a skull instead of just an actual full head. And yeah, there's cool things you can do with those kind of finishes, I think.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think that kind of stuff is really cool. But just don't like if you're just like, oh, my logo is in foil. Well, that's 15 cents you didn't need to spend because I don't think people buy your game because the logo's in foil.
yeah. How about shrink wrap versus all alternatives to shrink wrap? And it seems like most publishers still shrink wrap their games, but I'm seeing a few more publishers who just have like the stickers on the side that hold their box together in retail, or that's pretty much the only two options, right? That I've seen. But stickers versus shrink wrap versus other ways to wrap your game. And what's kind of the point of that?
Pass. I don't
Fair
want to
enough.
answer this question because I
Too
feel
controversial.
it's controversial.
Yeah.
I'll never. I don't like the stay stickers. My problem with the stay stickers is I wish we could have an attitude in the board gaming industry that was like the box is the box of the game.
Yeah.
A dinged corner is it's the packaging, right?
Not the end of the world. Hmm.
That's
not the
how
attitude.
gamers are.
Yeah.
It's not how people are. They want
Yeah.
their perfect, pristine, non-dinged corner game. I wish more people were like I've gotten copies of games from Kickstarter with just crushed corners, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's fine.
It's playable.
I'm not going to be like I know what it takes to fill replacement parts. And I know what it costs to get replacement parts. And I know especially asking for a new box
Yeah.
is such a pain for publishers.
It wipes
So I
out
never
most
do.
of the profit. Yeah. From
Yeah,
that sale.
like I don't do it, right? Like I don't do it. And do you know, and here's the thing. It's not our fault that the game arrived with a dinged corner, right? Because in order to fully prevent that, you would have to pay us like an extra $15 for shipping to put like padded protection on everything. So we
Yeah.
wrap the games well. And I have to tell everybody, like people are like, oh, the games are packaged so poorly. We have less than a 1% error rate. Like on like shipping out games.
Yeah.
So you could be the guy or the person that gets the ding corner. And I understand that it's a frustrating thing, but it has a very little to do with the fact that like it's just your game happened to get the dinged corner, and
Yeah.
we're sorry about that. And we will replace it. We will replace it for you if you ask. But it's frustrating and
It
it's
lets us charge a
expensive.
much lower shipping rate, right? Which
Yeah.
benefits more people. So
So in moving to, so I think all the stay stickers, like I think I bought Horrified recently, and me and my daughter played it,
Yep.
and that uses stay stickers.
yep.
They leave residue. They leave a mark on the game, right?
Yeah.
And the box is not going to be as nice as the box as the game that uses shrink wrap, right? When you get it, it's going to have like scratches because it's moving against each other. There's going to be movement. It's not going to be a pristine, beautiful box cover like you would get one in shrink wrap. And at the end of the day, like I know that if we switched to using stay stickers, we would have to have the attitude of like the box is the box.
Yeah.
And that would
Can't
make
replace
a lot of people mad. So
Yeah.
you can't have it both ways. You cannot have my game needs to be beautiful and perfect and pristine, or I want replacements, or we want to be environmentally friendly as possible. And like that's the thing. Like in the grand scheme of things, I don't know that shrink wrap is doing that much damage to the planet, and I wish we could get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I'm like, I wish it were better. I wish it were easier. But right now, you can't have both things.
Yeah.
And the other alternative, which I think is harder to get across, is like a good friend of mine, Tim Eisner with Weird City Games, very pro like environmental guy, like very pro environmentally friendly guy, very much at the forefront of leading initiatives on like board games being as like environmentally friendly as possible. And maybe if we ever talk about environmental standards and stuff like that, he could guest us on the show and kind of give his feedback and vision on it, because I don't think it's something that me and you, not that we don't care about it, we use like very ethical manufacturing practices and things like that, but like in the grand scheme of things, I don't think me and you are like, how environmentally conscious can I get my game, right? Like our factories use FSC certified materials, we do that, but like neither one of us are like on the like, let's not use shrink wrap train, right?
Yeah.
Again, I wish there were a way to have both things, but like his copies of games come in like brown paper packaging, right?
Yeah.
So it's like fully recyclable. Like everything is fully recyclable, right?
Yeah.
That's hard to sell on a shelf.
Yeah.
When it has like brown paper packaging, like how do you put that on a shelf and get people to get excited about it?
Works great for web store sales, but yeah, you get it on a shelf and yeah, it's not so helpful. Pivoting a little bit, what about expansion packaging? So I think there's a lot of options here, and I know you and I, Allplay and Bitewing, have often done much cheaper packaging than what maybe a lot of companies do, where they invest in new box art for an expansion, then they do like a full blown box that usually just ends up getting recycled anyways, and because the components get thrown in the base game box once somebody acquires that. But something that you and I have done and that we're doing a lot more often of is like, this is our Orbit expansion that I just got in. It's something that a retailer could hang on a rack, but we can sell this at a much lower price to people and get the expansion into their hands much easier that way, compared to if we made a full blown box and commissioned art and paid our graphic designer and took up way more space in the container and all that. So what are your thoughts on expansion packaging?
We could do a whole episode on expansions.
Yeah, maybe we should, right? Eventually.
So expansions, I have so many things that are not for this podcast to say about expansions.
Yeah, this particular episode, sure.
I have to formulate my thoughts, but like it has to start with the fact that like your expansion is not going to sell as well as your base game, and in fact, it's going to sell a lot worse than your base game.
Yeah.
Okay. And you need to know that going in. So every piece of investment into an expansion, and also an expansion is not going to reinvigorate interest in your base game. It's going to be for the fans of your base game. So like I think a lot of new publishers just have this idea that they're going to do this game and it's going to be a big Kickstarter, and then their next big Kickstarter is an expansion for that Kickstarter. And you will invigorate the fans, but that expansion is not going to sell at the same pace long term as your base game. And once you get away from the Kickstarter crowd into the more regular market, those people aren't that interested in expansions.
Yeah.
Retailers don't sell a lot of expansions. So from a rule of thumb, I would say that like the more you invest into the expansion, the less return you're getting on something like that anyway. So make sure that you're being very cognizant of that. Now, a lot of this is based on how well the base game does and how well those expansions are going to sell. So, for instance, Kabuto Sumo is a game that has sold very well for us. It has been pretty much an evergreen since we've had it. It is one of our best-selling games of all time. And it's very steady and very consistent. We have 3 expansions for that game that all come in nice packaging that could be displayed in a store. It's tuck box expansion, so it's made to be destroyed, but they have art on them, right? And so, in fact, I can show them to you right here because I have all 3 of them. But like, we invested in like really high quality artwork for these expansions, right?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
But this is pretty much the only game that we've really done that with. In fact, for Twinkle Twinkle, which has been we're really excited about, that actually has a full blown box as like the expansion now, because just we have future plans for it and we want to have something that's going to last for a while. But one of the things that we saw with that game is that like we were like justifying whether or not we need like new artwork, and really we kind of did like a color swap kind of thing, and like a different focus, and kind of just like our graphic designer like manipulated the art enough to make it like look nice. But like that was kind of what we decided to do with the Twinkle Twinkle expansion, even though it's a completely separate box. And there were some timeline things where like the artist couldn't get to it for several months, even if we had asked her. So like we just wanted to make sure that we had a very nice looking box packaging for that. But we still didn't want to invest a ton into like the artwork, because it's just like we're going to sell a lot of base game Twinkle Twinkle. We're going to sell a lot less of the How I Wonder expansion,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'm much more of a fan of, if we can get make it work, just doing the hang tab packaging. And now one of the things that we have done recently, Nick, and I can show this to you. I'm in my office now, and everything's like easily displayed versus where we used to do the recordings.
Yeah.
So this was packaged incorrectly, but I have here like one of our Oddland expansions, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we've been doing is with our expansions, because sometimes we have cards or like things in them, we don't want them to get bent. And if there's like a hard piece of cardboard in it, which doesn't cost very much money, we can do this, which kind of creates like kind of like a box cover art that we get for the hang tag packaging.
Yeah,
so we
that's
kind
nice.
of have this, and it doesn't really do anything. In fact, I'll open this right here so you can see. But the only reason that this thing exists is literally just to make sure that the rest of the components don't get bent, and that there's like kind of a nice thing to display for the retailers or at a convention setting when people pick it up and can see like what it is. So it has like
nice.
kind of both things.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's helpful info about expansion packaging. I guess we have one more bullet point to hit here, and then maybe at the end we'll do some rapid fire questions from our commenters. But alternatives to boxes. That's
this isn't my world. This is your world, Nick.
yeah. I've got examples here. So there are obviously a lot of options that's outside of boxes. The vast majority of board games do come in boxes, though, right? But that doesn't have to be the solution for a particular game. Maybe something else would work better. So I guess one common one is the mint tin option, right? Which has a nice shiny feel to it. I know some people really hate these because like Tom Vassell really okay, and Joe. That's fair. It has a nice feel to it, and you can actually like have a three-dimensional finish to it. But yeah, it does have its downsides where sometimes the lid does not stay on very well. This one has been great, but others not so great, or they get dented very easily. So that's something to consider. Ah, yeah, the wallet. I did not grab that. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, like Button Shy does everything in these little, I think it's 18 card wallets, right?
Yeah.
And so they have a rule sheet and 18 cards and their little wallet packaging. And I just happen to have one of these sitting in the office. And so this is also another thing where like somebody has come up with a very clever, consistent idea that they want for the game. And it's nice because like it doesn't fall out or anything like that. So you can kind of carry it around.
Yeah, very portable.
But this is another type of packaging that somebody in the industry has decided to come up with that feels really, nice and unique and special.
And a lot of these really aren't. Sometimes they're cheaper to make than a box, or they're not really that much more expensive to make than a standard box. So another option is a magnetic box, right? Facade Games uses these faux book boxes here, where it looks like a book, and the factory can actually shape it like a book, and then you open it up, and there's a game inside, which is very cool, and I think helps contribute a lot to their success. We've used magnets in some of our games. This is probably a more common use of magnets, where the flap here is magnetic, and then the game opens up to that inside. And so it seems like most people perceive this as like a premium or deluxe packaging, which is good. It's nice to have that kind of perception about your games. I will note that one downside of this is same with the faux book box. I actually was carrying a stack of these games one time, and this was on top of regular box games, and this slid off and fell on the ground, and then it just exploded everywhere because there's not that overlap between the box lid and the box bottom, right? Where if you drop a game like that, it's probably not going to explode. These ones, if you throw them in a bag or something, they can easily pop open and the components will fall out. Whereas if they're on a shelf, we talked about Cascadero and how the box can separate a bit if it's on its own. There's zero separation, so there are some advantages to magnetic boxes, but there's also disadvantages. So here's an interesting one. So we talked about square versus rectangular, and this one I think is fun, but I guess it depends on how much you want your boxes to fit neatly with each other. But yeah, I thought CMYK did a cool job with this, and you sprinkle out the tokens onto the board, kind of like a salt shaker, and this thing comes off as well. So I don't know how much insight I have into this, but they've got a cloth board in there and such. But it's definitely got a nice, unique feel to it, right? Okay, here's another common one that you see sometimes, just a pouch, right? Maybe this is in a tuck box with a window in it, and you see like, oh, it's travel friendly. It's got a pouch. Now, I have some games where this fastener here is not very good, or they have no fastener at all. You just pull the drawstrings together, and that just opens right up, and the components want to fall out. Like Love Letter is one example. I think this one's better, where it actually fastens closed. But then when I want to store this on my shelf, super annoying, like very, very annoying, right? This thing, I have to.
That's where your Calyx has those little bins, and you have a bin where you throw all of those things, but then you forget they exist.
Yeah, exactly. Like this blends in. I don't see this on my shelf, so I rarely play this because I don't see it. I don't think about it. So downside, I guess, to doing that. Here's a rather interesting Knizia game, actually. Cheeky Monkey.
The plushie games. Yep.
Yes, where there's Velcro on the back, and this game is about reaching in to, which is kind of morbid in some way, but my kids love this game. You're reaching in and you're pulling out chips, and it's kind of a push your luck, how far do I go type of game. But yeah, this is very, very appealing to families and kids, obviously. And then the last one, which is more relevant to Bitewing Games and what we're doing lately, is the clamshell case, which as far as I know, we're basically the only publisher doing this. But Trailblazers, we have a tuck box here because we know most people aren't going to keep the box packaging, so that's easy to recycle. But then it shows the clamshell case in here. We have another game with the same type of travel case coming out soon. Now this is an old title and such. It's going to be bombastic. But the nice thing about these is these aren't that much more expensive than your regular box. It doesn't add too much to the cost at this size, I should say. We can still sell this game for $25, and this one we're selling for $20 because there's less components inside of it. But these are nice because people can clip this onto their bag, or they can toss it in a bag, and it's zippered shut, so that thing's not coming undone. Very durable, very hard. So meant to be more portable and travel friendly. And with our current Kickstarter Gingham and Gazebo, we have these boxes here, which are kind of the retail edition, right? But what I found was doing a bigger game like this, it would be nice to package everything up like this, but it just gets to be a little too expensive. This bigger clamshell case pushes the price of the game beyond what we want it to be. Which lowers the barrier to entry, right? So this has become kind of a deluxe upgrade, which we're offering for free to backers, but later on we'll just sell separately as a way. Again, it's kind of a medium-sized game crammed into a very compact packaging that is very travel friendly. I found that the nice thing about this is when I'm traveling or I'm going on a trip and I want to bring a game, I can toss this in my suitcase and it's like 100% carefree. So we'll see how it does in the market, right? Nobody's really released anything this large as far as a travel friendly case that I know of, and maybe people will find like, hey, it's not that helpful. But I think with us and even the previewers that I've talked to that have used this so far, some of them have traveled with this and they're like, yeah, this is fantastic. I've clipped this onto my bag or I've tossed it in my bag and it's been really convenient in that sense. So there are, if you think outside the box, there are a lot of different options for packaging your game. And sometimes that can become part of the branding and the marketing of the game, right? With going back to the Facade games, their faux book box, these are social deduction games. And there's, it ties so nicely into this element of like, there's a traitor among us. There's more than meets the eye. And that's exactly, and these are based on like historical cities and time periods and such. So the branding of that comes together so nicely when the game looks like a book, right? So I think if you're wanting to be creative with your packaging and you have a specific theme or message you're trying to get across, sometimes the packaging can go a long ways in helping to sell your game and sell the idea of it, right?
Yeah. So a few things that I wanted to bring up based on all of that is I love your travel cases. They're really good. I think everything else you mentioned as far as packaging goes, I hate.
Oh, all those alternatives? Yeah, that's fair.
I'm just like, oh, I don't want that. I don't want that on my shelf. Oh man, how am I going to store that? Like, it becomes like a thing. But every now and then, like something comes out. Like Lacuna, I think is really cool. I think that's a really cool idea. CMYK has that other game coming out called Hot Streak that has like the board that like literally unravels from the box. They do crazy stuff over there, which is. Hey, more power to them, right? Mm-hmm. Now, as far as where I'm thinking about it, is there's two other things that I wanted to bring up and get your take on them. Is when the box interacts with the game itself. So the biggest thing I can think of right now is Boop, right? Where you use the box bottom and you put the little thing on it and it kind of elevates the game and almost like thematically represents cats jumping on the bed, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a really cool idea to like have your thoughts on like how boxes interact with the game itself.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic.
Strike is the best.
Strike is great. Yeah, Strike, you open that up and there's a gladiator gauntlet, a coliseum where you throw your dice into it.
Kabuto Sumo dice. We're doing that. Yeah, like you're tossing your dice into the arena. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Another really cool example, I think, is Siege of Rundar. That's a Reiner Knizia cooperative game from Ludonova, where when you open that up, a lot of games have that plastic vacuform insert to it, just to organize your components. You pull everything out and you play the game on the table. Well, Ludonova, they use that vacuform insert as like a fortress, and there's walls and towers coming out of the box and such. And so you pull open the box and you're immediately looking at a fortress. You don't have to set it up or anything, which I think is really cool and great way to use vacuform like that.
I'm going to cue our producer actually right now because hopefully he can put like a little screenshot on the thing. But if you go to the Kickstarter for Flamecraft Duel, that has some really great packaging. That's one of those like I think it's wooden, where it has the little metal clasp that like unhooks and you open the thing. But the board literally is there, and the board kind of opens and the components are underneath of it. But like that's, if you've not looked at the Kickstarter for Flamecraft Duel, that's a really cool, beautiful looking package for a game, and I think that that's another really cool way to like introduce using packaging into your game and stuff like that. But one other type of box that we haven't talked about, Nick, because we've kind of got to talk about all the cool ways that Bitewing has introduced like packaging concepts and everything, but something I've done, because Allplay is boring and we just have like standardized box sizes and we don't do anything cool or creative. But one thing I've gotten to do that you haven't gotten to do yet, and I'm waiting for you to get to do this for your first time because it's not fun, is a deluxe storage packaging. And again, if you're on the podcast, you can't see this.
That is a project. But this, I will say, I own this, and this is amazing. Like, you guys crushed this, because this makes it so much more convenient to set up and put away.
I think this is the prototype that I grabbed off of my shelf, because it has like a little ribbon here to like open the magnetic doors. But like and it doesn't have the colors. Yeah, so this is one of the prototype versions. But yeah, we worked really hard to make sure that this was very well done and very well situated and everything like that. My biggest thing is I own a lot of like, because I back a lot of Kickstarters, I own a lot of like big deluxe storage boxes. And I've got to be honest with you, our big deluxe storage boxes that I own make it harder to play the game.
Yeah.
Like I have like the Tricarion Everything in edition, and like I don't know the last time I've opened Tricarion because I'm like I don't even know what's what and like what like I'm gonna have to like read the entire rulebook just to know like what trays are for the base game when I play it again, right? Like there, and I own the Anachrony Infinity box and everything that goes into that. And there's so many of these like giant, huge storage boxes, and like the Everdell one, and I'm like the it exhausts me to think about getting the Everdell big box off of my shelf.
Yeah.
So my whole thing with the Kabuto Sumo big box from the very beginning was I want this when you pull this off the shelf, I want it to be easy to play the game. And I think if I've done nothing else in this world, right? if my life becomes a total waste, I made a big box that makes it easier to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just they're trays that you pull off the shelf, and then you just lift the components out, and you're basically ready to rumble.
And it's like if you want the base game, you need this, this, and this, right? If you want to add the Total Mayhem expansion, it's right there. If you want to add this, if you want to do the Sakura Slam, it's this, right? I hope that when people get this big box, they consider it to be a value add to their game rather than a detraction from playing it.
Yeah, I think if you're a Kabuto Sumo fan, it's 100% worth it because I'd actually, aside from the portability aspect of it, the fact that it's bigger, it makes it much, much easier for me to get that game to the table at home, right? And it's funny because I've heard Leader Games talk about this with Root, where they've had so many requests from people, why don't you do a Root big box? And obviously one of the answers is, well, we're not doing expansions yet, so how big do we make the box? But the other thing that they always often answer with is a big box is a coffin for a game. It's just like you said, when it becomes so much harder to organize and pack everything away and then find what you want when you are unpacking it and then haul it around to game night because it's so much bigger, you're essentially killing your ability to play a game like that.
Like I just brought up, like it makes it harder to play some of these games because of the packaging. And I can definitely agree with Leader that there is a lot of truth to that. And here's my thing. I don't think we've ever officially said this, but other than some promos that will absolutely fit in the base game, we're done with Kabuto Sumo core product. There will not be any more Kabuto Sumo core product. And we decided this when we did Sakura Slam because we tried so many new iterations of rings and we really went through so many ideas with wrestlers. It's just not expandable the way a game like Root or Unmatched is, right? It's too narrow of a design scope to just keep branching out and branching out and branching out. And we tried so many arena types, and we were like, this square arena is the best arena that of all of them. Like we tried a hexagon, we tried a 2-story one where things dropped in the middle. None of them were super fun. Like they just weren't that interesting. The corner ring is what we consider to be the optimal way to play the game. And the characters in Sakura Slam are really exciting. And we feel like we have the imagination for some more promo characters to like fill out the rest of the space. But beyond that, there will not be core Kabuto Sumo product. We are not going to make an expansion that isn't going to fit in that base game.
Yeah, that's fair. So I guess final thing here, we did collect some questions from folks, and we don't have to give super elaborate answers here because I think we covered some of these topics to some extent. But let's just go through this real quick and get some of your answers and some of my input as well. So first question is from Zach. He said, I'd love to hear more about the differences there are, if any, for making box design and packaging for crowdfunding or direct-to-consumer sales versus products primarily meant for distribution and retail. Do you feel like there's anything we haven't covered as far as crowdfunding boxes, direct-to-consumer boxes versus retail and distribution boxes?
Oh, yeah. Actually, something to consider is if you're doing crowdfunding boxes and that includes expansions and premium components that you're doing separately, don't make 2 different boxes. Just make one SKU that includes the stuff in the box and one SKU that doesn't, and make sure that the SKU that includes everything in the box is not printed over what you need for the Kickstarter. In fact, print it a little under because you can make it up with just the add-ons and the base game if you are a little bit short. But that's something that actually I feel like I taught you, Nick. I feel like me and you had that conversation. I was like, oh, if you do it this way, you actually save money and you won't have to deal with maintaining like a deluxe version of a game and a retail version of a game, which,
Yeah.
as you've seen, gets to be really messy, right? When
Yeah.
you're dealing with like long-term sales, is like, I have a deluxe version, a retail version. Are they selling at the same rate? When do I reprint one? It's a lot better because it shares some components. So if I reprint the standard at a different time and the deluxe at a different time, like it just doesn't have the economy of scale that I wish it would have, and all
Hmm.
of these things. And
Yep.
I told you that, and then I immediately broke the rule for River Valley, right?
Yeah, you did.
But like you can still see that like 9 times out of 10, it's
That should
going
be
to
the
be the right
exception,
move.
right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's so hard to gauge demand between those two versions, and when we can print, if we need 10,000 more Zuvadas and we have to split it up into standard and deluxe, it's like if you get that wrong, that's no good. But if you just consolidate to one edition plus deluxe add-ons as their own separate thing, then it's much easier to be like, okay, we're just going to print 10,000 and a handful of deluxe stuff, and it's okay if you run out of deluxe because you still have the base game still selling, right? So that flexibility is really helpful. Darren asked, how much difference is cost in a decrease in chipboard weight? I have a favorite game where the box has a lot of flex, and I have a long-term durability concerns based on that decision. How much more is someone like Apple spending for their tank-like chipboard boxes? So I guess the question is like, box thickness, is it really worth making your box thinner or thicker to make it cheaper or more durable, that kind of thing?
So because I worked at Panda and Panda makes very high quality boxes, I have a lot of feelings on the durability of a box, because like there's a thing where I don't have to look at the back of a box. I can just pick up a box and squeeze it like this, and I know if it Panda made that game or not. Like I know,
Yeah.
because of how we do our boxes. Now to upgrade to something like how Apple does it, that's going to cost you a fortune, to
Yeah,
be
not
honest with
worth
you.
it. Hmm.
And honestly, like it doesn't cost that much to increase or decrease the box thickness. You're talking like 10 cents on the total manufacturing cost of the game. And because the box is like gonna like the thinner your cardboard, the more dings and destruction you're gonna have for your game. So having a nice box is going to be good. But what's crazy is like the expense that Apple pays for its packaging, but that is packaging literally meant to be destroyed. No one's going to complain because
Yeah.
their iPhone showed up in a box with a ding corner. So
Yeah, that's a different. That's
it's
all
very
about the
gonna,
experience of opening it,
yeah.
right, and feeling like from the moment you touch the box, it's premium and it's nice. And there is, to some extent, you do get a little bit of that with board games. Like, how nice is that initial unboxing experience? It's worth considering as a publisher, but yeah, not to that extent. Because we're selling a $30 to $60 product versus Apple selling $1,000 product or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to field the next one from Lucas, because I know Lucas.
Mm.
Whole box printing versus box top printing only.
Hmm.
So the only example I can think of for this is Splotter
Yeah.
will not print a back of the box.
How much are they saving by doing that?
Right. Yeah. First of all, if you're actually manufacturing it with a real manufacturer, it's like 6 cents.
Okay.
Just run it through the printer.
Yeah.
Dumb idea.
Hmm.
Like dumb idea. Like the
You're,
only
you're
reason you would do
wasting.
that is because you're just not concerned with the sales of your game,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
A back
Yeah.
of the box is going to help you sell the game. Now, if you're like, I'm just giving this to my Kickstarter backers and they know that it's not going to be printed and blah blah blah, I don't even need a barcode. But still, like having that legal information is important on the game. You need that stuff on your game. So it's a really dumb move to just not print the back of your box with the information that's needed, the barcode that's going to help it long term.
Yeah.
Like your savings are so small
So small. Yeah.
to just give up on so much potential.
How about this is kind of an interesting perspective. So oftentimes Punchboard takes up a lot of space in a box, right? So is there a benefit to having the Punchboard pre-punched, so you can, all that stuff that ends up in the recycling bin, you can just remove it from the box initially and end up with a smaller box?
Yeah, so I've seen games where they have custom inserts that are made to fit the game very specifically, and either the box has significant box lift because the punch boards are not accounted for, or
Yeah.
have you seen the ones where like put the punch boards under
Yeah.
the insert? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like those,
Mhm.
or sometimes like the punch board is even on the outside of the game, right? It's shrink wrapped to the outside of the game, right?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So like I've seen lots of different methods of doing it. I'm not opposed to any of it. I personally would never do it.
Mm.
But that's because I don't put inserts in my games. But pre-punching chipboard is incredibly expensive.
Mm.
And think about it, right? Think about it. You have to pay someone. A robot can't do this.
Mm.
You have to pay someone to punch out all of those pieces. And also, if they're punching it out and like one of the pieces kind of like rips, they have to like rip the whole thing, start over again, right? So you have to print extra, right?
For thousands of
and then,
games.
Yeah, they all get punched, and then they have to put it in a very specific place, right? It's a very expensive thing to do. It's very labor cost. It probably will add $1 to the cost of your game if you just have like 3 or 4 punch boards that need to be pre-punched.
Yeah.
I've seen games that are very like high quality with like game trays inserts that have paid for that. It's like sometimes a $6 cost.
Wow.
Right? Because that's a lot of labor.
So avoid it if you can is the answer out here.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
And I think that covers everything. We already talked about your standardized box sizing and non-box packaging. Those were a couple other questions that people had. So I guess any other thoughts about packaging boxes before we close out?
No, I mean, I got a meeting to head into, so this is a good time to call it. This has been great. This has been a great conversation, I think.
Yeah.
I hope people learned something.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hope you appreciate all the thought and the stress that goes into box sizes, at least for most publishers, because we do think about that a lot. It affects a lot of different things.
You know what we didn't talk about? We didn't talk. I'm gonna just be late to my meeting because something that we should talk about. Honestly, this should have been way earlier. We never talked about the back of the box.
Yeah. We mentioned it, but we didn't cover why it is so important. Right.
The back of the box is super important. The back of the box is incredibly important. So on the back of your box, and in fact, let me show you.
There you go. I've got upside down. I've got Through the Desert here, which this I think follows Joe's current philosophy for what should be on the back of the box, and this is notably quite different from most board game publishers' philosophy. So, do you want to explain this a little more, Joe?
Well, let me show you what the back of our boxes used to look like.
To be.
I would argue we used to have the worst back of the boxes in the industry.
Okay. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah.
And this is what I think a lot of back of the boxes look like.
This is what most. Yeah. It's pretty similar to what most publishers do.
It is a static render of all the components.
Yeah.
Then a giant catalog of all of the components, and then a wall of text.
Right.
And I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's terrible. Honestly, we just used to not care. Or like, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, how much does it really matter? And when you're selling in distribution and retail, it matters a lot. So let me show you what, and again, the back of this box used to look a lot like that. Let me show you what I would consider to be, and again, I'm going to break my own arm patting myself on the back here, but I think that we have a amazing back of the box for Kabuto Sumo. Okay. So first thing is it has a 1, 2, 3, right? It has pick a wrestler, and it kind of creates this like toyetic factor of like choosing kind of like your action figure and their special weapon, right? Then enter the ring, and it kind of shows like the arena setup. So now you get to see kind of what the game looks like. And number 3, push out your opponents, and you see the piece being pushed into arena, kind of what it might look like in the middle of gameplay with pieces falling out. And you kind of get the sense all at once of exactly what this game is about. It's got lots of different wrestlers with different powers on it. You're pushing pieces into a ring, and you're trying to push your opponent out of the ring. I don't have questions. I understand Kabuto Sumo from the back of the box. And I feel like if this entices you and you turn it over and this does not turn you off, you're going to understand everything you need to know about this game and be able to make a purchasing decision.
Yeah.
Guess what you don't need to know? You don't need to know that there are 3 anthill cards, 7 special rule cards, 8 chocolate cards, and 7 wine cards.
Yeah.
There are 50 regular food tokens, 10 apple, 10 grape, 10 cheese, 10 pepper. Like, did you need to know that there are 25 cards? Like, I just...
Yeah, it doesn't do much to sell the game, right? Or convey what it feels like to play it, or anything like
I
that. People glance at
I
that; they don't. Nobody reads that when they're considering buying a game.
I do this thing with my friends that are publishers at conventions where like I'll pick up one of their games and I'll turn to the back of the box and I'll go, "Oh, there are 43 mission cards? Whoa, that's really cool." Like, because I'm just like looking at like one random thing on their big list of components. And I don't think you need to catalog the components on the back of the box. I think it's just, it does it in the rule book and it's not selling the game. Like,
Yeah,
no one's looking at your game and buying it because they're like, 43 mission cards. That's a lot of mission cards.
yeah,
Wow. You don't even know what mission cards do. So why do you care? Or even better, like 20 mission card easy, 20 mission card moderate, 20 mission card expert, right? Like it's like, oh, wow. Cool. Like I'm sorry, but but this is the thing. Like we used to do that.
yeah.
So,
It's just what everybody does, right? And so
it's
like,
not a selling point.
yeah, I'm glad that you've caused me to kind of think outside the box with and Kabuto Sumo. I'd say is a little bit unfair because it's such a visual game and the rules are so simple that that's the easiest one to convey. But we have tried to adopt your strategy a bit with our more complex games, even. So I'll show one example here, which is also upside down. Where Ego is like a medium weight auction adventure romp push your luck game, right? And we did follow a lot of your advice in this example where we removed the list of components and things, and we tried to simplify it as much as possible for a more complex game like this. Showcase some of the artwork and components, showcase like the main gameplay very simply, showcase maybe one of the key components that catch people's eye and some of the artwork, right? And give like little easy to read, quick to read tidbits about a game. So I think there are ways, and this might not be the very best way to do it for a medium weight or heavyweight game, but I think there are better ways to do it where you just make the information more easily digestible, highlight the things that are most marketable about your game, whether it's the artwork or key components, and actually show them on the back of the box so people can see, oh, this looks really interesting, and they're not slammed in the face with a wall of text that they're probably not going to read because they don't have the time or patience for it. So I think there are ways to do it even for complex games, even if it's not as clean as what Kabuto Sumo's box back is.
Yeah, and I'll give some other examples just because I think this is a good opportunity to talk about it. But one of the other things that we did on Merchants of Andromeda, on A Message from the Stars that I thought was good. We also did this on a Merchants of Andromeda, but we have this A Message from the Stars, right? And we kind of created this like almost comic book, this like 1, 2, 3, right? Where it's like it's like you receive transmissions, and it kind of shows you like thematically what's happening in the game. Right, where you're like getting this like mysterious signal from like an alien, and it's like transferring onto the computer here, where the scientist is like talking about it, and then it shows you the physical component that you're using in the game that signifies this happening in the game, and then it says number 2.
Work cooperatively to decipher the messages. Yeah.
So we address that it's a cooperative game, right? I'm trying to read it backwards in mirror, so it was a little difficult. Work cooperatively, right, to decipher the message. And we see that like there's this computer screen with these languages and things going on, right, with these like doohickeys. And this shows like in the game like what you're actually doing. You're like you have this board with letters. So I think you're like, okay, so I get cards like this, and then I'm using this to figure out this different thing. And then number 3, it says uncover the
alien language.
Uncover the alien language and decode the secret message. And so like we're like tying this like thing where like everything that's happening in the game is thematically tied to the components that you're using them for to help you understand what the game is. So I was really proud of like what I kind of came up with in my mind for like how to do A Message from the Stars, which is great.
Yeah. It's so funny because like you showed Bytes earlier, and that has like nice artwork and nice components, but like the way it's presented, it doesn't highlight that very well. Whereas A Message from the Stars is a very thinky game, and when you're playing it, it's mostly just like numbers and words, and that's like the only thing in your brain. But like the back of the box is showcasing this artwork and kind of the feel, the theme of the game. So there's even with very wordy, mathy games like A Message from the Stars, there's better ways to, like you showed, to convey a game and to sell it with the box back, right?
Perfect. Then I wanted to show off some of our smaller ones that I thought we've done a pretty decent job with, right? Fiction, I also think I consider Kabuto Sumo and Fiction to be some of our better back of the boxes, like the ones that we've done the best with.
Yeah.
They've also been like big mass market sellers for us, so we've taken a lot of time with them, right? And so this one says, Fiction, a Wordle-inspired game of deception. And it says, Psst, this is the secret word, crown. And it says, make guesses to figure it out, right? And it shows sharp with like the Wordle clues, and then prune with the Wordle clues, and underneath you can say right, it shows you that it's
wrong spot, wrong, right spot,
wrong spot, correct, and stuff like that. And then it says lie, and then it's right here in a big thing. It's like, but there's always a lie. And this is what I was kind of talking to you about with like the packaging for bombastic that you're going to be doing, is like when you can like showcase something, it's like and kind of do it in this like flashy way where people are like, but like I think that this does a really good job conveying it. And then we even put like a little blurb down here to explain it even better, right? When you have less space to work with, like these boxes do, like this one doesn't have like a big 1, 2, 3, right? So this is lore. It says, wager dice to catch elusive fish. Will you be risky and try to cast first, or be patient to catch the big one? I thought about doing a 1, 2, 3 for this one, but at the end of the day, the 1, 2, 3 weren't interesting. I had a lot of 1, 2, 3s, but I was like, pick dice, wager dice, roll dice, and I was like, that's not that fun. But like explaining it with like a simple thing to read, but then showcasing the artwork and the components in like a way that like actually shows off the game and highlights the artwork works really well. And then I have some of our tiny boxes which have almost no room because of how much space. Legal stuff we have to put, right? But it says fairy, and it says flip, right? And then it says, try your luck. Can you catch the elusive fairies? And it basically shows what you're doing in the game. And it basically says one person bidding higher and says, oh no. And then one person bidding lower saying, yay. And then one person bidding a fairy and it says, woohoo, right? And so basically it's like how fairy works right here on the back of the box, which is fun. And then another one where this is, you've played this with me, For the Emperor, right? And this is a very difficult game to explain on a very small thing. So
some games are really hard.
So let me know how I did with this. Okay. So Nick, I don't think you've seen the back of this box, right? But so you see this, you see two Japanese warriors dueling off against each other, right? And then you flip it over, and this is what it says. It shows two pieces of artwork from the game and kind of like a little bit of theme, right? So you get that it's like kind of a combat game. It says, two clashing armies work to overpower, outwit, and outmaneuver each other to claim victory.
Nice. Yeah, that simple. It conveys the feel. So, yeah, and so there's some really. I think a lot more publishers should be thinking outside the box with their, no pun intended, with their box backs, right? And the question is, when somebody's at a convention or they're at a retail store and they look at the box back, how much time are they spending looking at that? And what do you want them to come away with? What kind of impression do you want them to come away with? So, I guess one more topic while we're still here, but quick question for you. Do you have a philosophy for the box size as far as what kind of information you want to put there?
We have a very focused brand goal where we do not put our logo on the front of the game because we think it messes with the artwork and doesn't look good. We have a pretty unobtrusive logo, so we just kind of put our logo right here on both long sides of the box, which is kind of how it's intended to stand. So we kind of have a format for all of our games. All of our games have the same format for the logo of our boxes. And then the last thing that we do is we put all of the player count information on the other two sides. So we make sure that the words are present on all sides of the box. We put our logo on the two sides where it's supposed to stand up, and on the other sides we put the player count, play time, and age information. But then we also have this little graphic on the back of all of our games that reiterates all of that, and then tells you kind of and again, not a lot of people focus on this, but tells you what line it's in, right? So this is in our strategy line, whereas this is in our fun for everyone line.
Yeah, I think there's some very important things that publishers should consider when they're designing their box sides. One thing is when your box, no matter which orientation it is stacked or facing outward on the shelf, can people easily tell what game that is? Because if it blends in, if it doesn't pop, if it doesn't have the name of the game on it, if it's just very bland blank space, then your game is going to get played less. That's just a matter of fact. Like the games that I see on my shelf more easily are the ones that I'm more likely to play. And so yeah, it's good that you do exactly what you showed, where like people know exactly what game it is. We do have a vertical side for our bigger boxes where I guess it's that way, huh? Where if people stack it like that, there's a slightly different orientation depending on how you want to store it. But yeah, definitely make sure your game pops on all surfaces, because that way it's just going to get played more. It's going to be more visible.
Yep. But with that, I got to run. So
Okay.
we're going to say goodbye, but I'm glad that I took the time to like talk about the back of the box. It's like in a game where we're talking about box packaging, I think that that's super crucial. So you got a bonus round with us
Yes.
this episode.
Love it. Well, thanks for joining, and we'll be back next time. Be sure to like and subscribe to this video to help us find more people, and feel free to leave comments if you want us to cover other topics within the industry.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Peace.